Hey guys. So it's been a while since you've seen the Mazda on the channel. So Tack moved out of the state. He lives in Pennsylvania now, and this car wasn't something that he really wanted. It was just something that I happened to have. He bought it for me, it was cheap, and he drove it for 2 years and it was problem-free. The intention was when he moved, he was buying a new car, which he did in Pennsylvania. And then I was just going to keep this, kind of give him his money back for it, and then keep it, sell it, something along those lines. On his last week here, he ended up getting into an accident with it. So he, I don't know all of the details. I got one side of a story, of course. But from what I understand, he was driving on the highway. Somebody merged into him or in front of him. He swerved out of the way and ended up driving into like a grass median off of the road and like in the center between the two sections of highway. So when he did that, he spun and it took both rear tires off of the wheels. It cracked the taillight, and then the front bumper here is disconnected, and there was no coolant or engine oil in it after that. So what I'm going to be doing is just investigating, seeing what's going on here, deciding if it makes sense to keep or not keep. It's got 230,000 miles on it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just remove the bumper. There are a couple of spots where the core support seems to be broken, so I want to see how bad that is, and I have to get the radiator out anyway, so the bumper covers the core support, so we're just going to remove some of these screws. So there's two here in the top. All right, so we've pulled the bumper cover. This plastic core support right here is broken, and that's where the radiator mounts. So there's a couple pieces here that are actually busted. So my goal is to now remove this. So it looks like next I have to pull the headlights and the headlight mounts, this front bar here, and all right, so we'll remove the headlights. All right, so now we're going to try to remove this core support. I'm not exactly sure how it comes apart, so we're just going to figure this out. The hood is supported by it, so we're going to need a different hood prop. So we've got this harness here, and there are these clips on the bottom and top. They're like white, so they need to be released. It looks like we just want to like pull out the center tab, like where my finger is, down, or in this case over here, up, and then it should slide forward. So we're going to release and pull out that harness. So what ended up happening in the accident, this is a plastic, it's where the pipe mounts for the radiator coolant. So the mount here snapped off, and that's why it leaked coolant all over the place. It's a plastic mount on a plastic end cap. There's still a little bit of coolant in here, obviously. I just dumped some on the floor. The fan appears fine, the shroud, the motor, all of that seems fine, so that's good. The condenser, I could hear air leaking at the scene, so I just tested the pressure here and there was nothing in it, so I disconnected that as well. It does look like there isn't really a way to remove the core support in this car without disconnecting the AC lines, which are right here, and the condenser, which is here on the front of the vehicle. I haven't found the leak in the condenser yet. I'll take a look for that here shortly. But now I have to figure out what these parts are going to be and what it's going to take to put this back together. So the fan shroud actually just snaps into place. There's like 4 clips. The bottom 2 have snaps on them. And if you push them in, like I just used a screwdriver, it comes right off like that. In preparation for taking this all apart, I already ordered a core support and a radiator. They're sitting here. So you can see this is the pipe that broke off of the old one. So I just ordered a condenser from Amazon. It's going to be here Tuesday. It's Saturday. So what I'm going to try to figure out here is, can I put this back together in a way that makes it so that I can access the condenser and get that added in once it arrives? And I think the answer is no, because of the way that this is assembled. So what I'm going to do for now then is I'm just going to leave this apart. I'm going to wait for these pieces to show up, and then we'll get it reassembled and back together once the condenser is here. I just don't want to have to take it apart and assemble it twice if I can avoid it. So we can mount the cooling shroud on the radiator. So the way that works, you see there's a pocket here, a pocket here. There's 4 of those, just like that. So if you line up all 4 pockets, get the bottom one started first, they just kind of snap into place. So we're just going to put all these parts in the trunk for now so that I can pull the car out. So something interesting actually happened here. Remember I said the car had no oil in it. Well, it's because the oil filter housing was sheared off of the engine. So this is what they call an oil filter adapter. It bolts onto the front of the car, and it's where the oil filter actually screws into. I don't know why this is a separate piece. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it is. So you can see here how it sheared off. And then we're going to get this new one reattached. I ordered a new adapter and gasket. Got our new oil filter installed, and we can add oil, make sure she doesn't leak.
It's now Wednesday. The condenser came today. We got it installed in the core support. We also have the radiator installed in the core support as well, and we're getting this attached and put into the vehicle. Obviously, like I mentioned, since the core support holds up the hood, it is a little bit of a it'd be nice to have a helper for this because you don't have a hood prop and you don't really have a good spot to connect the hood to. You could remove it, of course, if you're by yourself. So we're just getting the core support into place, kind of putting it in the spot where it should be. We're going to connect it with a 10 mil on each of the 2 corners to the front fenders, and then we will see if the other mounts line up on the front of the vehicle where it connects to the front crash bar as part of the frame. Now we have both top bolts started, and we're going to lift the center core support into place, and we're going to start the 10 mils on the front. There are 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom of each side. The tabs were a little bent from the accident, so I was able to bend those back with a pair of pliers pretty easily. The holes lined right up, and I was able to at least get them started. Once we have some support here, we can reinstall the hood prop rod and use that to hold the hood up so we can get everything tightened and back into place more permanently. So we got the front core support installed. Now we're going to work on getting the radiator hoses connected. The top one on the driver's side is a little bit of a pain to get at. I've got a pair of pliers here with the ring kind of stuck in them through this one tiny access hole. It's the only place that I can get at it without removing the entire airbox and intake manifold from the car. Now we're working on the passenger side. This is the lower hose, which is a little bit easier to get at, especially with the bumper off of the car. So we're getting that hooked on as well. There is a Y that sits right next to this one that is part of the reservoir, the expansion reservoir, in order to add coolant to the car. It's actually kind of a neat design the way that they did it. The radiator doesn't have a standard radiator cap. Instead, there is a pressurized expansion reservoir that has the ability to get air from 2 different parts of the system and then also add coolant to the bottom of the radiator through this Y connector. Working on getting the front end reassembled. This is the airbag sensor that sits on the latch of the hood. There's also a metal plate that goes over the front of the latch. There's a support beam that goes from the core support down to the crash bar, which is that T-shaped metal piece that's right next to my right hand. And we're just getting everything bolted back together, running the wiring through the same spots as they were from the factory, and making sure that everything is connected the way that it was when it came apart. Now that the radiator is finally installed, we can start adding coolant, check for leaks. In this case, I'm just using water because I don't want coolant all over my floor if I do have a problem. So we're just getting it filled. This took about 1.5 gallons of water. We'll let the car idle, let the system get pressurized, and we will see if we have any coolant that comes out the bottom. Everything looks good for now. So on to the headlights and the rest of the assembly. So we're getting the driver's side headlight installed. These mount with multiple bolts. There's one below the left side of it, one below the right side of it, kind of where that white piece is in the bottom of the fender. There's also a top bolt that mounts to the core support. We're just getting the sockets plugged back in, getting the bulbs back into place, making sure that everything is connected and works properly, and then we'll get this bolted up. The passenger side headlight mounts the same way, just on the passenger side. Getting that one plugged in, getting it bolted up as well. You can see the driver's side it's here. I just left it loose because I'm going to have to adjust it when I get the bumper installed and get the hood closed and make sure that it's not too high, not too low, not too left, not too right, and that it actually lines up with the body lines of the bumper and the rest of the front of the car. Next, we are going to fit the bumper into place. There is a harness that connects to the center middle of the bumper with 2 temperature sensors that I believe are for the outside temperature. And then there are fog light harnesses as well for the left and right fog lights on this car. If your car doesn't have fog lights, you probably still have the harnesses. I think that they're all pre-wired for them, whether you have them or not. We get those connected, and then we can start hanging the bumper in the spot where it goes and starting to snap that into place and getting it screwed in. There are screws across the top of the bumper that connect to the core support, and then there are snaps on both the left and right side into those white connecting plastic pieces that you see at the front of the fenders. So we just push those into place and just start to get this lined up. We got the bumper reinstalled, took it for a test drive, and I noticed that there was a lot of noise when shifting gears. It feels like there's a problem with the engine mounts. So I'm looking under the car right now at the rear, what they would call the transmission mount, and looking for an issue. And what I found was actually that the transmission mount was bent in the accident. Whatever took off the oil filter from below the engine must have also bent the engine mount. So we're going to get a new one of these. It's going to be another week or so before this comes in, and then I will come back and give you guys an update after we get it installed. So sometimes things don't go exactly as you intend, which is why this video is now done, and I never really recorded the end of it.
we had some problems with the Civic, and I had to get this on the road for Eric. We got the bumper back on, as you can see, the lights are in, we aligned them. I ended up polishing these out because they were very hard to see through. I replaced the bulb socket here for the parking lamps. On the underside of the car, I replaced that engine mount that had failed. We've had zero problems with any leaking oil or anything like that. I charged up the AC using a couple cans of Freon, and the AC is working well. So really at this point, the car is back together. It's been driving. He's been driving it for about 2 weeks every single day, and we've had zero issues with it. Outstanding things right now, it needs an alignment. It doesn't really pull, but the steering wheel isn't straight when it's driving down the road. This is broken. This plastic piece here is broken in a couple places, so we'll get that replaced at some point. We got the windshield put in it, like I mentioned. Did have, it's going to need some new wiper blades, so we'll get those installed as well. They got tore up by the old windshield being all cracked. But that's good. And then we also put a Kenwood head unit in it that has CarPlay. The old one was an Android-based radio. I replaced the speakers while we were in here and replaced the window motors as well. But the car's good. It runs good. Really haven't had any problems or complaints with it. There is a dent here that's not going to get taken care of, but we had to replace one tire. The sidewall got damaged in the accident, but the other three are all good. Had them mounted and rebalanced and all of that. So at this point we're in really good shape. We're just going to let him drive it and put some miles on it, and I am done putting money into it, because honestly the car's worth probably around $2,000, $2,500 reasonably for a running car that's inspectable. And I just put $1,700 or $1,800 into it. I'm selling it to Eric for what I have into it, which is kind of what I did with Tack originally when I bought the car. Tack bought it off of me. He wrecked it. So he doesn't really intend on getting any money out of it, but Eric is going to pay what I have into it, basically. No labor, but just parts. And it's all back together and good. This is what I ended up using to charge the AC. I hadn't used it before. Arctic Freeze R134A. That worked really well. I just got the kit that already had the gauge and the filler on it, and I had no issues with that. So something that I really haven't messed with in a long time. The last time I did it was with an R11 car, a 92 Prelude. But yeah, anyway, so thank you for watching. Hopefully the series was hopefully this video was fairly interesting. I realize it's kind of all over the place, but this took course over a couple of weeks, and I didn't want to make it a multi-part series that took hours to watch. I just wanted to make it one video. So thank you for watching, and have a great day.